This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
A working session has been held here in Algiers between representatives of the Algerian Parliament and a joint delegation representing bodies of the Parliamentary Assembly of NATO. The fourth edition of the African Youth Forum, which was held in Oran, has wound up with the adoption of a declaration calling on the African Union states to participate in the EU Commission actions. As the humanitarian situation continued to deteriorate in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli army pursued its bombardment of the territory, killing at least 30 Palestinians for the past 24 hours. Americans are heading to the polls today to decide whether Democrat Kamala Harris or Republican Donald Trump will enter the White House. The major developments, now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received several messages of congratulation from many presidents and senior officials on the occasion of the 17th anniversary of the outbreak of the glorious November Revolution. Jamal Simani has the details.
President Tebboune received congratulations from the President of Tunisia, Kais Saied, and the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The President also received congratulations from the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and the Vice President, Deputy Prime Minister and President of the Presidential Court of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan. He also received messages of congratulations from the Governor General of Canada, Mary May Simon, the President of Greece, Ekaterini Seklaropoulou, the President of Bulgaria, Rumen Radev, and the President of Serbia, Alexander Vučić. Let's recall that Algeria celebrated this year the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the glorious November Revolution.
A working session has been held here in Algiers between representatives of the Algerian Parliament and a joint delegation representing bodies of the Parliamentary Assembly of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO-PA. More details in this report by Essia Bakar.
The meeting was marked by the examination and debate of several issues related to the international situation and the political, security and environmental situation in the Mediterranean region. The meeting tackled decolonization issues, the fight against terrorism and organized crime, as well as the political, economic and security challenges in the Sahel-Saharan region and climate change. On the occasion, the President of the National Defense Commission of the Council of the Nation, Issa Naili, said, given Algeria's enormous capacities and resources and the interest shown by the President of the Republic to her relations with the NATO, Algeria wants to maintain cooperation based on mutual respect and pragmatism with the NATO. During the meeting, the President of the Middle East and Mediterranean Group, Fernando Gutierrez, stressed the importance of joint action to find solutions to the persistent crises in the Mediterranean region, emphasizing the central and strategic role played by Algeria in consolidating international security and peace, strengthening energy security and combating illegal migration without neglecting its humanitarian aspect.
We cherish the partnership the Assembly has with Algeria and its Parliament. And we think the dialogue today has never been as important given the range of shared security, diplomatic and economic challenges we all face across the Mediterranean region and beyond. I should tell you that NATO Parliamentary Assembly serves as an essential link between NATO and its national parliaments. The Assembly's work covers a broad spectrum of security, diplomatic, societal and economic matters shaping transatlantic relations and the international order more generally.
The Vice President of the Commission on Democracy and Security, Javier Maroto, for his part, said NATO countries and Algeria have a unique opportunity to foster resilience and stability in their shared region.
Today, we met not only as neighboring nations separated by the Mediterranean Sea, but as partners sharing a complex set of challenges. In facing these challenges together, NATO countries and Algeria have a unique opportunity to foster resilience and stability for our shared region. From migration to energy security, climate change and the fight against terrorism, our collaboration has never been more essential. One of the most visible and pressing challenges we face is migration. Economic hardships, political instability, and climate pressures drive people to seek better lives around and across the Mediterranean, creating risk both for the individuals involved and for the societies managing these flows. NATO countries and Algeria share a responsibility to approach migration with a balanced perspective, one that considers security needs while honouring humanitarian commitment. Together, we must work towards policies that disrupt criminal trafficking networks and offer alternatives to those at risk.
The meeting was marked by a fruitful debate during which MPs and experts exchanged views on the political, security and environmental situation in the Mediterranean region while proposing solutions adapted to the alarming data of the multiple regional and international crises.
Energy and Mines Minister Mohamed Arkab has received a joint parliamentary delegation of the Parliamentary Assembly of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO-PA, visiting Algeria as part of cooperation with the Algerian Parliament. During the meeting, which was held at the headquarters of the ministry in the presence of the Italian ambassador in Algiers, representatives of the Ministry of National Defense and executives of the ministry, several areas of common interest were discussed, notably energy security at the Mediterranean and global levels and the development of new and renewable energies, in particular green hydrogen, including ongoing and future projects such as the South H2 Corridor hydrogen pipeline project, which will connect Algeria to Germany via Italy and Austria. Mr. Arkab said energy security has become a major concern for both producing and consuming countries due to the challenges related to economic growth, geopolitical situations, the complexity of transit flows, price fluctuation, and the dimensions of supplies and demand. Mr. Arkab added that Algeria is a major energy-producing and exporting country, and the concept of energy security means ensuring the satisfaction of our long-term energy needs while contributing to global energy security by ensuring a regular, stable and reliable supply of oil, gas and other energy sources. The fourth edition of the African Youth Forum, which was held in the western city of Oran, has wound up with the adoption of a final declaration calling on the member states of the African Union to participate in the actions initiated by the EU Commission to face up to the challenges facing the African continent. The details with Essia Bakar.
In the final declaration, participants stress that it is recommended that a priority be given to the development of an inclusive, accessible, quality and resilient digital culture, critical thinking and innovation, calling for universal access to quality education by making primary, secondary and higher education free and compulsory, notably in rural areas. They also called for youth participation in the decision-making and implementation of the African Youth Charter to ensure that the voices of young people are heard in shaping the future of Africa. The forum urged African countries to work towards reducing the digital gap by investing in technological infrastructure and guaranteeing internet access for all young people on the continent, notably in rural areas. On the occasion, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, was honored by the participants for the success of the forum and his support for African youth. The President of the Higher Council for Youth also honored the representative of the African Union Commission, the Minister for Youth and Sport, Abdurrahman Hamad, and the Minister of Vocational Training and Education, Yassine Marabi.
In this respect, Mr. Marabi stressed the importance of cooperation between Algeria and African countries in the field of training and the technical support provided in this area. Speaking at the closing ceremony of the fourth edition of the African Youth Forum, attended by the Minister of Youth and Sport, Abdurrahman Hamad, the Speaker of the Higher Council for Youth, Mustafa Hidawi, and ambassadors from several African countries, Mr. Marabi emphasized that the Algerian youth sector was a key factor in the success of the African Youth Forum. Mr. Marabi stressed that the vocational training and education sector provides around 500 training grants for a year for trainees from 25 African and Arab countries as part of its technical support and to strengthen the bonds of brotherhood and distinguish cooperation between Algeria and friendly African countries such as Niger, Mauritania, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Libya. The Speaker of the Youth High Council, Mustafa Hidawi, said for his part that the African Youth Forum represented a starting point in realizing the ambitions of the continent's young people to achieve prosperity and progress.
The meeting was fruitful, during which we exchanged views on the various issues of common concern, but our discussions focused particularly on the decision taken by the President of the Republic, whereby he agreed on the holding of the World Youth Forum to take place on October 2025 in support of the Sahrawi issue. To this effect, we agreed to set up within the 2 coming weeks the preparatory commission devoted to such a major event.
He added that the event, which brought together 600 young men and women from 55 African countries, had created an African youth movement which understands the challenges facing countries and the continent and seeks to meet these challenges in cooperation and by uniting its energies and capacities to strengthen the role of the African continent in the world in line with its size and its material and human capacity. The Speaker of the Council of the Nations, Salah Goujil, has said here in Algiers that Algeria is committed to the firm principle underlying its foreign policy and of sovereign equality and non-interference in the internal affairs of states. At the opening of the working session held between the Algerian Parliament and the Joint Parliamentary Delegation of the Mediterranean and Middle East Group, as well as the Committee on Democracy and Security and the Subcommittee on Resilience and Civilian Security of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, the Speaker of the Council of the Nations, Salah Goujil, said that Algeria is keen to dissociate itself from the polarizations between the various parties and is working to rebalance and promote multilateral international action for a world of solidarity, peaceful coexistence, justice and respect for rights. Regarding the genocide perpetrated by the Israeli occupation against the Palestinian people, Mr. Goujil stressed that Algeria denounces the policy of double standards that currently characterizes the international community's handling of the issues of oppressed peoples. Reaffirming Algeria's support of the Sahrawi people's right to end the occupation of their territory and to exercise their inalienable right to self-determination and independence, he called on NATO PA parliamentarians to defend the free exercise of the will of peoples through the necessary efforts to eradicate the scourge of colonialism. The president of the Collective of Sahrawi Human Rights Defenders, Kodessa Ali Salim Tamek, revealed that the Committee for the Protection of Sahrawi Civilians of Kodessa has stressed in its 12th report the continuation of systematic crimes carried out by the Moroccan occupation forces against the Sahrawi civilians. In a statement made to our colleague Wahib Amiri, Mr. Tamek added that the report also highlighted that the Moroccan occupation continues to violate the most fundamental human right, the right to life, by targeting Sahrawi civilians with drones, as well as the continued confiscation of land and the demolition of Sahrawi houses in the occupied coasts and beaches of Laayoune and Boujdour.
The president of the Collective of Sahrawi Human Rights Defenders, Kodessa, has published its 12th annual report covering the human rights situation in the occupied part of Western Sahara. It covers the period of October, as this is the time when the question of Western Sahara is examined at the level of the Security Council. The report has recorded the continuation of crimes committed systematically by the Moroccan occupation against Sahrawi civilians in violation of international humanitarian law, which prohibits the targeting of civilians during wars or world conflicts.
That was the president of the Collective of Sahrawi Human Rights Defender, Kodessa Ali Salim Tamek. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. As the humanitarian situation continued to deteriorate in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli army pursued its bombardments of the territory, killing at least 30 Palestinians for the past 24 hours. The news agency Wafa said that the bombardments mainly targeted the northern area of Beit Lahia, the central town of Jabalia, and Khan Younis in the southern part of the enclave. In this respect, the EU diplomacy chief, Joseph Borrell, said the situation in the Gaza Strip and in the occupied Palestinian territories was deteriorating every hour, leading to unbearable sufferings for the civilians. In a similar move, Palestine's representative to Algeria, Faiz Abu Aita, denounced the current situation in the occupied Palestinian territories, which he reiterated is the result of the Balfour Declaration adopted 107 years ago.
فإن ما يحدث من حرب إبادة جماعية لشعبنا اليوم.
What is taking place now, including the genocide being perpetrated, is resulting from such a declaration that paves the way for the setting up of the Zionist entity on the land of Palestine. That is why we consider the declaration damned, and it is necessary that the United Kingdom apologizes and provide moral and financial compensation to the Palestinian people, and that it works towards stopping its genocide, especially now as the Palestinian people is facing war and a genocide in the Gaza Strip, where the population is murdered and where 80% of the territory's buildings had been destroyed, and where about 43,000 people had been killed in cold blood by the occupier.
That was Palestine's representative to Algeria, Faiz Abu Aita. The World Health Organization, WHO, has warned about the ongoing health crisis prevailing in North Gaza amid the polio vaccination and the hospitals damaged by the relentless Israeli bombardments on the Strip. Speaking to reporters, the World Health Organization representative in the West Bank and Gaza, Mr. Rick Peppercorn, said that in October many WHO missions to the north were cancelled or impended.
I want to just stress how dramatic the situation in the north of Gaza, at least, is currently. There are 3 hospitals there: Kamal Adwan, Al-Ada, Indonesian. Indonesian hospital is not functional anymore. Kamal Adwan and Al-Ada are minimal functional. Al-Ada is probably will be, if WHO plans another mission later this week, if you're not allowed, if you're not facilitated, that hospital will be very quickly out of service as well. Health overall is what it's all about, and polio is an important component of this. So the campaign aimed to vaccinate an estimated 592,000 children almost under 10 years of age with a second dose of the novel oral polio vaccine type 2. Now the campaign in the north, you probably might recall, just started 3 days ago, the 2nd of November. It was postponed from the 23rd of October due to the lack of access and assured comprehensive humanitarian policies, and also because of the intense bombardment, the mass evacuation orders from the north, etc.
That was the World Health Organization representative in the West Bank and Gaza, Rick Peppercorn. The Americans are heading to the polls today to decide whether Democrat Kamala Harris or Republican Donald Trump will enter the White House at the end of a campaign of unprecedented tension. The polls opened at 6 a.m. local time on the east coast of the United States, and millions of people will add their votes to the more than 80 million ballot papers already cast early or sent by post. The result of the polls will be historic in any case, as Kamala Harris, 60, the first female vice president, would become the first woman, black woman, and South Asian American to win the presidency, and Donald Trump, 78, the only president to be impeached twice and the first former president to be criminally convicted, would also become the first president to win non-consecutive terms in more than a century. The latest polls show the two rivals on an almost equal footing in the 7 crucial states, which in this indirect election will give either the Democrat or the Republican enough electoral votes to reach the threshold of 270 out of 538, synonymous with victory. The 12th session of the World Urban Forum is taking place in Cairo, Egypt, returning to the African continent after more than 20 years after its inception in Nairobi, Kenya in 2002. The theme of the forum is It All Starts at Home, Local Actions for Sustainable Cities and Communities. It focuses on localizing the Sustainable Development Goals, shedding light on the local actions and initiatives required to curb the current global challenges affecting the daily life of people, including unaffordable housing, rising living costs, climate change, the lack of basic services, and ongoing conflicts. Let's listen to a message addressed to the participant by the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres.
You are on the front lines of shaping a more inclusive, connected and resilient world, and you are at the heart of where lasting change happens. As your team rightly puts it, it all starts at home. Real progress begins at the local level, on the ground, in communities and people's lives. World leaders have just adopted the Pact for the Future. It's an important new tool to advance our vital work accelerate the SDGs, and address inequalities. I know over the next 5 days this forum will have the chance to delve into the complexities and opportunities of sustainable urban development. I invite you to seek innovations and inspiration and take them back to your communities, and to help develop infrastructure and public services for all, including women and girls. Local actions are the building blocks for future green, just and resilient cities.
That was the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. With this last piece of news comes the end of our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a program by my colleague Mohamed Khatil. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. Salt is the most important source of sodium in a person's diet, also known as sodium chloride. Salt comprises 40% sodium and 60% chloride. Today, the term salt and sodium are often used interchangeably. Some salt varieties are fortified with iodine, iron, folic acid, and a combination of these. Sodium is essential for many vital body functions, including fluid balance, nerve health, nutrient absorption, and muscle function. Historically, salt has been used to preserve food. High salt concentrations help prevent bacterial growth that can cause food to spoil. However, health organizations have been on alert about the dangers of salt for a long time. There are claims that excess salt intake causes high blood pressure and heart disease. Yet, decades of research have observed conflicting results. Salt in the diet can come from processed foods, either because they are particularly high in salt, such as ready meals, processed meats like bacon and salami, cheese, salty snack foods, and instant noodles, among others, or because they are consumed frequently in large amounts, such as bread and processed cereal products. Salt is also added to food during cooking or at the table. However, some manufacturers are reformulating recipes to reduce the salt content of their products, and consumers should read food labels and choose products low in sodium. WHO recommends that adults consume less than 5 grams, just under a teaspoon of salt per day. The same organization recommends that the maximum intake of salt for adults be adjusted downward for children aged 2 to 15 years based on their energy requirements relative to those of adults. This recommendation for children does not address the period of exclusive breastfeeding from 0 to 6 months, or the period of complementary feeding with continued breastfeeding from 6 to 24 months. All salt that is consumed should be iodized or fortified with iodine, which is essential for healthy brain development in the fetus and young child and optimizing people's mental function in general. Sodium is an essential nutrient necessary for maintaining plasma volume, acid-base balance, transmission of nerve impulses, and normal cell function. Excess sodium is linked to adverse health outcomes, including increased blood pressure. The primary contributors to dietary sodium consumption depend on the cultural context and dietary habits of a population. Sodium is found naturally in a variety of foods, such as milk, meat, and shellfish. It is often found in high amounts in processed foods such as breads, processed meat, and snack foods, as well as in condiments, example soy sauce, fish sauces, and others. Sodium is also contained in sodium glutamate, used as a food additive in many parts of the world. Potassium is an essential nutrient needed for maintenance of total body fluid volume, acid and electrolyte balance, and normal cell function. Potassium is commonly found in a variety of unrefined foods, especially fruits and vegetables. Increased potassium intake reduced systolic and diastolic blood pressure in adults. How to reduce salt in diets. Government policies and strategies should create environments that enable populations to consume adequate quantities of safe and nutritious foods that make up a healthy diet, including low salt. Improving a dietary habit is a societal as well as an individual responsibility. It demands a population-based, multi-sectoral, and culturally relevant approach. What are the key broad strategies for salt reduction intake? Government policies, including appropriate fiscal policies and regulation to ensure food manufacturers and retailers produce healthier foods or make healthy products available and affordable. Working with the private sector to improve the availability and accessibility of low salt products, consumer awareness and empowerment of populations through social marketing and mobilization to raise awareness of the need to reduce salt intake consumption, creating an enabling environment for salt reduction through local policy interventions and the promotion of healthy food settings such as schools, workplaces, communities and cities, monitoring of population salt intake, sources of salt in the diet and consumer knowledge, attitudes and behaviors relating to salt to inform policy decisions. Salt reduction programs and programs that promote fortification with micronutrients of salt, condiments or seasoning high in salt, stock cubes, soy and fish sauce can complement each other. Salt consumption at home can be reduced by not adding salt during the preparation of food, not having a salt shaker on the table, limiting the consumption of salt snacks, choosing products with lower sodium content. Other local practical actions to reduce salt intake include integrating salt reduction into the training curriculum of food handlers, removing salt shakers and soy sauce from tables in restaurants, introducing product or shelf labels making it clear that certain products are high in sodium, providing targeted dietary advice to people visiting health facilities, advocating for people to limit their intake of products high in salt, and advocating that they reduce the amount of salt used for cooking, and educating children and providing a supportive environment for children so that they start early with adopting low salt diets. Actions by the food industry should include incrementally reducing salt in products over time so that consumers adapt to the taste and don't switch to alternative products, promoting the benefits of eating reduced salt foods through consumer awareness activities in food outlets, reducing salt in foods and meals served at restaurants and catering outlets, and labeling sodium content of foods and meals. Misperceptions about salt reduction. On a hot and humid day when you sweat, you need more salt in the diet. There is little salt lost through sweat, so there is no need for extra salt even on a hot and humid day, although it is important to drink a lot of water. Sea salt is not better than manufactured salt simply because it is natural. Regardless of the source of salt, it